Welcome to our board meeting. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Tonight, the Board of Education is pleased to recognize Parkway's latest National Board Certified teachers and the Parkway Rockwood Community Education Program. I'd like to invite Assistant Superintendent for Teaching, Learning, and Accountability, Dr. Lisa Meredith, forward to come to the podium.
Good evening, President Feldman, Vice President Jacob, members of the board, Dr. Marty, and Ms. Stover. A wise man, Nelson Mandela, once said, "Everyone can rise above the circumstances and achieve success if they are dedicated to and passionate about what they do." This evening, we will recognize 4 newly certified national board teachers. That quote certainly symbolizes what they have done. Rise above everyday challenges. These teachers have been busy teaching, planning, attending meetings, tending to family obligations, missing time with family to prepare for their national boards. They are already successful teachers, but they were so dedicated and passionate about what they do that they wanted to do more. They were determined to be even better. The National Board for Professional Teaching Standard was formed in 1987. The goal of national boards is to advance the quality of teaching and learning by engaging teachers in professional learning, focusing on rigorous standards of professional practice as defined by the National Board. Teachers who engage in this process participate in a year-long learning experience of professional growth and reflection to improve their practice and advance student learning. I am pleased to recognize this year's group of National Board recipients. Andrea, you guys, go ahead. I'd like to invite Andrea Ben-Muvar to come down. Andrea teaches English at West High. She is National Board Certified in English Language Arts, Adolescence, and Young Adulthood. Congratulations, Andrea. I'd like to invite Laura Heidert to please come forward. Laura teaches physical education at Wren Hollow. She holds her National Board certification in physical education, early and middle childhood. Congratulations, Laura. I'd like to invite Stacy Hoffman to come forward. Stacy is a National Board Certified in English Language Arts, Early Adolescence. She teaches 7th grade English Language Arts at Central Middle. Congratulations, Stacy. Melissa Horman, please join me. Melissa is at Central High, where she teaches AP Calculus, AB, Pre-Calculus, and Geometry B. The title of her National Board certification is Mathematics, Adolescence, and Young Adulthood. Congratulations, Melissa. Amanda Kelly, please join me. Amanda is National Board Certified in Literacy, Reading, Language Arts, Early and Middle Childhood. She serves as an instructional coach at Piermont Elementary. Congratulations, Amanda. Molly Layton Glasser, please come forward. Molly is certified in literacy, reading, language, early and middle childhood. She teaches in the Mosaics Academy, where she teaches English language arts, multi-age math, and critical and creative thinking. This is at Piermont Elementary. Congratulations, Molly. Jennifer Meyer, please join me. Jennifer teaches AP Physics 1, AP Physics 2, and General Physics at Central High. Jennifer received her National Board Certification in Science, Adolescence, and Young Adulthood. Congratulations, Jennifer. Terry O'Leary, please come forward. Terry teaches physical education and health at Central High. Her National Board Certification is in physical education, early adolescence, and young adulthood. Congratulations, Terry. Christy Prudence, please come forward. Christy is National Board Certified as a Middle Childhood Generalist. Christy teaches 5th grade at Wren Hollow Elementary. Congratulations, Christy. Joel Rademeyer, please join me in the front. Joel teaches at South Middle, 6th grade integrated science, and he is the science department chair. The title of his National Board Certification is Science Early Adolescence. Congratulations, Joel. Cecilia Ryan. Cecilia is National Board Certified in English Language Arts, Early Adolescence. She teaches 8th grade English Language Arts at West Middle. Congratulations, Cecilia. Laura Schisler. Laura teaches orchestra to 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade students at both Barrett's and Carmen Trails Elementary. Laura is certified in music education, early and middle childhood. Congratulations, Laura. Susan Marie Scott. Susan teaches chemistry and AP chemistry at South High. She received her National Board Certification in Science, Adolescence, and Young Adulthood. Congratulations, Susan. Nancy Suter, please join me. Nancy serves as instructional coach at Central Middle. Her national board certification is in health education, early adolescence through young adulthood. Congratulations, Nancy. These 14 gifted educators certainly deserve our recognition this evening, but I think they would all agree with me if I indicated that we needed to also thank Liz Morrison for all of her leadership for the National Board Certification Program. Thank you, Liz. In our quote that we heard earlier, we talked about the sacrifices. I would also like to thank the families, administrators, teammates, and mentors who have supported these National Board recipients during their process. If you would please stand if you fit any of those categories and let us recognize you for your support. Parents, teammates, administrators, mentors. Congratulations, teachers.
Group, my goodness.
Yeah. All right, ladies and gentlemen, one more round of applause for our nationally board certified teachers. The Parkway and Rockwood School Districts recently launched a community education partnership in an effort to provide enhanced and expanded opportunities for residents of all ages in both of our districts. This innovative and collaborative effort has recently been recognized at both the local and national level. Each year, the East-West Gateway Council of Governments honors local jurisdictions, public officials, and projects that are making special contributions to their community and region. Parkway and Rockwood received a 2014 Outstanding Local Government Achievement Award for exemplary intergovernmental collaboration. Parkway and Rockwood also received the Learning Resources Network International Award for innovative practice in business and industry. Parkway and Rockwood formed a single identity to deliver programming more effectively to a more diverse audience. The two districts exemplify the innovative approaches to partnering that will be increasingly required for programs to remain strong and successful. Tonight, I'd like to welcome Mike Seppi, the director of the Parkway Rockwood Community Education Program.
Good evening. Thank you for having me here tonight. That's a mouthful on the award. I know when you read it, there's a lot going on there. So I'm excited to be here tonight. Thank you for having me back. I believe the last time I was here, we were maybe just kicking off. I think it might have been early September, if I'm not mistaken. So here we are, about a semester into it, and I kind of made just a few notes of some things I just thought I'd highlight for you tonight. If you had any questions, I'd be happy to answer them, but this will just be very brief. And so, as I mentioned, we have had an exciting first few months, first semester of the partnership. I do want to take a minute to acknowledge not only the Parkway administrators at the central office level, but throughout the district, at the building level, the principals, even the teachers. Everyone has been extremely welcoming, receptive, and very supportive as we have tried to enhance and expand the community ed programs for patrons. So we're very appreciative of the reception. I know community ed has always been in Parkway, but as we look to expand that, we appreciate the openness and welcoming reception that has been received. So as we look at kind of the first 6 months, a couple of the highlights obviously would be Adventure Club. As you know, that's in nine of the locations, and so that's moving very well. And I believe if I have my numbers right, we have about 425 students in the 9 elementary schools that are enrolled in Adventure Club. Just this last weekend, we kicked off our basketball league, which, as you'll remember, that was kind of the sports program that we were looking at for this year. And so our first week of games kicked off just this past week, and what was neat to see is we have Parkway teams playing Rockwood teams and playing in Parkway locations and Rockwood locations. And so that really is an example of how we've been able to not only enhance an existing program, but expand it to make it available to more students. I can tell you that we're getting great feedback from Parkway residents. As you know, we've been able to implement the online registration piece, and that has just been an amazingly wonderful convenience for parents, as well as, I will say, adult enrichment. We're seeing a lot of the adults come and take advantage of that. So where we're at now, just thought I'd kind of give you an idea of where we're at. If you haven't received it, maybe in the last week, you should have received the Winter-Spring Program Guide, which we mailed out about, I think it's about 108,000 of those between the 2 districts went out. So those are now out, and believe it or not, we're actually in the process of finalizing summer. So here we are in December deciding how we're going to finalize summer programs and what that's going to look like. So we're very excited about continuing upon the momentum that we've started. And then as we look ahead over the coming months, I had mentioned to the board last time that I was here, we are looking at the creation of an advisory committee for community ed. And so I know I had an opportunity to meet with Dr. Marty and Dr. Knost, and we started that process. So we do fully expect that come fall, we will have a process in place, and that will be up and running. So as I kind of leave today, again, I just want to thank the board over the last 3 years now for all of your support, your foresight into this partnership, and we're just really excited not only about where we already have gotten, but where we think we're headed over the next few years as we continue to phase in this partnership in both districts. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mike.
Mike, can I just, would you come back to Mike just a second? Do you want to just speak just briefly about the East-West Gateway Award, and then maybe a little bit about the experience you had at the national conference and how Parkway and Rockwood were further recognized? Do you want to just highlight that? I know Beth talked a little bit about it, but do you want to say more about that?
Sure. So the East, what's interesting and what's exciting is being recognized for doing what you do as a department. And so what we've always known and what the districts have always known is that offering community ed programs is a value-added service to the residents. And so earlier this year, we were able to be nominated by Mike Herring. So we appreciate him, the city administrator for Chesterfield, for nominating the partnership. And we did receive that local award, which last month a few of us were able to head down and receive that nice award, and that was very much appreciated. And then I just had the opportunity about 3 weeks ago to head to the national conference that we go to for lifelong learning every year. It's the Learning Resources Network. And not only did we receive their international award, again, for innovative practices and being able to affect our residents in a positive way, we also were able to I was able to lead some sessions, lead some programming. So there were other lifelong learners, not only from K-12, but from community colleges, higher ed, Parks and Rec, from all over the country, who we were able to share what's happening here, in West County, with those around the country. So I can tell you that we do have a network of peers that we communicate with regularly around the country in lifelong learning, and we've been able to share what's happening, and it's been And I've had lots of good questions about, hey, how are you doing what you're doing? So we hope to be able, as one of the benefits we were hoping to be able to do as this partnership grows is be a model for what other school districts can do and work together. And so we're very excited about being able to share our story and hope that it can help others as well.
Thank you.
Great, thanks.
I just want to say that Mike continues to just provide wonderful leadership, and he's been very, very willing to be on the ground in this program, and his staff as well. And it's been really a wonderful start, and as Mike said, a good first semester. It hasn't always been easy, but it was something new. But Mike has been so optimistic and positive through the process. I would, I just want to take a moment. He's kind of stepped back now, but Paul Tandy has been really instrumental over the last year and a half to really get this moving. And he's stepping back a bit. We're letting him step back, and Mike Roth is really stepping up now to work more closely with Mike. But we got to thank Paul for all the work he did and laying the groundwork, working with Mike really closely. So, Paul, thanks so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to take a 5-minute break. All right, we're going to go on now. We're going to continue with 6.0, additions, corrections, and modifications to the agenda. Agenda item 15.01, 2014-15 budget update and 2015-16 budget assumptions. Changes to the operating and total expense breakdown based on changes to the classification of workers' comp expense. The totals did not change. And agenda item 11.05, approval of fall budget adjustments, pages 19 and 20, changes on the percent change and on the title of the revised budget column. There are no citizen statements tonight. May I have a motion and a second to approve tonight's agenda for the regular meeting?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Resolutions, there are none. Communications, calendar of meetings. The next regular board meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, January 14th, 2015, at 7 p.m. at Central Middle School with an anticipated closed session at 6 p.m. Board candidate filing will begin at 8 a.m. on Tuesday, December 16th at the Administration Building and will continue until 5 p.m. on Tuesday, January 20th, 2015. The terms of Kim Applebaum and moi, Beth Feldman, will expire in April of 2015. We're going to go to board liaison reports. I know Kim's got something.
I had the pleasure of visiting the Spark program, and I was so amazed at what those kids are learning. I should say young ladies and gentlemen. Working in the business world, there's a lot of things that you learn academically, but there's a lot of things that you just don't classroom. These kids will pick up the phone and call owners of companies or get information from high up, CEOs, CFOs, and it's amazing. Those are the skills you need in the real working world. And they were doing presentations on their products, selling their products, and how they're going to market it. Just amazing. I was flabbergasted, and I think it's a wonderful program. So.
I had the opportunity to attend the Parkway Alumni Association event and recognition, and it was the first time, of course, I had attended that, and I was just very impressed, and it was a very enjoyable evening, and really very impressed to see how the individuals who have graduated from the Parkway School District, what they go on to do, not only here locally, but nationally and even internationally. And so I was very proud to be a part of that and to be part of the Parkway system as a result of having attended that recognition ceremony.
Mrs. Feldman and I and Mr. Jacob attended the Spark. Well, there was a government relations meeting a couple of weeks ago held at Spark, and it was so wonderful to bring in some of our legislators or their assistants and community members, and none of them had been there before. So, and we got to meet some of the kids, and they talked about what they do in there. It was very neat, very neat.
And then to continue on that path, we had a PTO leadership meeting there where we brought many of our PTO presidents and other leaders in. And also I think it was during the PTO leadership, we had a group of educators from the Afton School District that were coming to observe Spark. And then I think they went and talked to Jennifer afterwards, or Jennifer or Xantha, to learn more about our program. So that makes me very proud to see that we're sharing our knowledge with the greater St. Louis community. Let's see, we have some subcommittee meetings coming up. We have HR Finance Subcommittee meeting this coming Monday, December 15th, 3 p.m. at the Administrative Center. Board Subcommittee reports, Project Parkway quarterly meeting, Monday, November 17th. That's not right. That's the first. Oh, it happened.
It happened.
We're reporting on it. I'm sorry, I thought we were announcing it. Okay, thanks. Then it is right. Board Subcommittee report. We had a very successful Project Parkway quarterly meeting, well attended at West High on November 17th. Now we are going to go on to action items. 11.0, may I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as presented in the December 10th, 2014 board materials?
So moved. Second.
Is there anything to be pulled to action or closed? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? Mrs. Stover, I have one abstention, 11.02, line 41. Everything else carries 6-0. That one 5-1 and 0. 501, however you do that. Okay, thank you. Action items, 12.01, approval of Parkway's 2015 legislative positions. Does anybody have any questions? Annie's here if we do. Okay. May I have a motion and a second that the Board of Education approve the 2015 Parkway legislative positions as presented in the December 10th, 2014 board meeting materials?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0.
Madam President,
Yes.
if I could just say too, you might think that nobody has anything to say, but just wanted to reiterate so that people know many of these things have been talked about several times with board members outside of this meeting and presented, and that's why at this point there may not be any questions. It's not that we didn't have questions as this was being developed.
Right. And these will be presented to our legislators when they convene in January, is that correct? Tomorrow, these will be presented to our legislators tomorrow before they convene in
Yeah,
January.
we want to get them to them, and they can
Right.
start looking them over, and,
I know they're pre-filing bills, so I know they're getting to work
Yes.
already. 13.0, we don't have a policy for review tonight. 14.0, reports. We're going to call on Dr. Chelsea, Superintendent of Student Services, talk to us about confident learners.
Good evening, President Feldman, Vice President Jacob, members of the board, Dr. Marty, Mrs. Stover. It gives me great pleasure to stand here before you to talk about Goal 3, Confident Learners, on behalf of the students, staff members, community members that have contributed to this amazing work. There we go. The work of Goal 3 centers around confident learners. And you may think that just because it is the last C in our mission that it comes last, but don't let that fool you. This work does not come last. The action steps and strategies aligned to Goal 3 aim to ensure that all of our students are confident learners who are increasingly self-directed, skilled, and persistent as learners. As you know, our road to accomplishing the work of Goal 3 is via character education. We have agreed that we must be intentional in the development of our students. Character education includes an expansive range of concepts such as school climate, positive youth development, service learning. These approaches promote the social, emotional, academic, and ethical development of our Parkway students. It helps them become more responsible, caring, and contributing members to our communities. So we have agreed that we cannot allow this work to be an afterthought. Our collective work around Goal 3 lies within our Parkway character education commitments. It's our common language. It's our commitments to our students, to our parents, and to our community, and most important, to each other, holding us accountable. Character education enhances our mission, our vision, our learning principles, and our commitments. This work helps to develop in students important human qualities such as justice, diligence, courage, and most importantly, why we live by such very important qualities. We have an obligation. We have an obligation to help our students develop their character. And this could only be done through good teaching, guiding, modeling, and by good examples. Through the sustained process that we have been moving through, we will indeed help our students become more confident, which helps them be capable and curious. Character education initiatives are happening all around our district. I am so proud of the work that I have been a part of with the amazing leaders. It has been shared leadership, which is accountability for everyone in Parkway working around our commitments. We can't just talk the talk, we have to walk the walk. And if you go into our school buildings, you will see that people are walking. They are on this journey and moving for the benefit of our students. So tonight, you are going to hear from members of our Parkway community. And due to the time tonight, we will only focus on commitments 1, 2, 4, and 6. But before you get comfortable in your movie seat, a few of the leaders of this work will bring you a treat. Ms. Bogerman asked me earlier if we were having popcorn. So now that you have a good movie, a good view, some good treats, sit back and enjoy character education in Parkway.
Part of the human challenge is to understand how generation that every generation inherits the world the prior generation has created for them. Then caretakers or shepherds of it, they come into adulthood and then bequeath it to the next generation. So societies need to understand that we need to think about how we're preparing the subsequent generation to be caretakers of the world that we've created, that we inherited. That's character education.
It's all about relationships and caring and understanding. It's the basis for good education. The power to know somebody's story, our students' story, teachers' story, students. Just that deep understanding and commitment to relationships and connectedness. Last year, we took what we learned, and staff, students, and parents had input in how these values were selected. So it was a process to make sure all stakeholders were informed and included and involved. And once we got our values, by the end of the last school year, we were able to think about how to roll them out this year for our students.
We had 5 key values, and there's respect, responsibility, integrity, grit, and compassion.
At our school, we have a very inclusive process along staff and students. Our Kids Creative Council involves roughly a third of our third, fourth, and fifth grade students who create plans for our school that focus on service learning, focuses on how do we help relate each other, the rules to each other. They take a leadership role throughout the day. We are working to let kindergarten versus second grade students who aren't part of the Kids Creative Council also expand their leadership role, whether it be through lunch leaders or helping out with something in the classroom.
I think about the plans that we put in place, they're proactive. As we're doing the work right now, I think it's some policy on how to support kids, where they are, and helping them as individuals grow in character, and also then how does that feed a human? And we know if kids are feeling safe, if they're feeling confident, they feel like they belong, that it's a better place to learn. So character pervades everything that we do.
Most
character education, if that's added on as another outcome, we're almost working against that whole process. So as character education as an outcome that's connected directly to the outcomes of content, I think that is a win-win.
The mentoring that goes on in advisory because 6th and 8th graders are together, it is incredible. The 6th graders look up to the 8th graders, and the 8th graders are really talking about what it is to be a self-fulfilling student and how we do things here.
You think about history, it's filled with great examples of people demonstrating positive character traits and also character traits that aren't so great. And I think that those give kids good models to follow and models to avoid.
The most important trend that we've seen at Natoli is the ownership piece. Our students know that they are valued and that they are important. It is very rare to go a week without a student coming to me and saying, oh my heck, what about such and such? I think we need to add such and such group.
I think it'll benefit future students because like they'll be able to have like they'll understand how their voice is actually heard, how it impacts the people around them, and like how like your character actually makes a difference in the community. I think that's a really good foundation for a lot of kids that struggle with finding what it means. I know that I have friends that people with basically the guy who what is it communicative person and people don't always have other adults in their lives who guide them through that, and making that a part of your education. So this year we started something on late start days, which is when we do school hours there. We have like a night period, and it's called Family Groups. So basically, every student goes to a teacher, and it can be any teacher, so any staff, and it's like a group of like 10 to like 15 kids from 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade. And each month we do a character lesson, and we talk about how we show that character. And we do like an activity based on.
I think with like teaching leader and everything, it really feels good to do that because you know that it's for a cause and you could be helping somebody achieve something that you did not do that well.
Huge impacts in terms of just how we interact with the community, how we interact with one another. Just recently we had a book fair at school. Just watching the way that the community and the adults interact with their students and vice versa, and students with the community. It's that relationship piece.
This is our third year doing the Leader in Need. We started and we have progressed a lot over the past couple of years. This year we really dove into doing student-led leadership roles. We find the children's strengths, and then we turn that into a leadership role, which therefore finds them taking more accountability for their school is. They know what to do, who to do, their leadership jobs, and now it's our job to teach other leaders about this and that.
I think it's every week or month, we sign a sheet and we check off which leadership role we want to do. So there's teaching leaders, there's public speaking, there's basic leaders where you go and entertain third graders, fourth and fifth graders, everyone.
Well, here at Manhattan, we have seen that the kids are taking more accountability for their school, what the school looks like, keeping the bathrooms clean, keeping the cafeteria clean. We've also taken, we've seen the growth in their goal setting. We do monthly assembly where we celebrate their meeting goals, and we celebrate, them tracking their goals, keeping them in the binder, and then displaying it out into the world for everyone to see.
We have a Viking council. It's like it was first student council and now it's Viking council, and in that students have like an opportunity to help the school and like the community. And right now we're working on something called Adopted Grandparents. So we like the local nursing homes, we sponsor like a gift for them. and figure time to like promote like compassion, which is also what I like. Me and Jordan, we did Girls on a Run, and we do service projects every year that we do it. And I think this past one, it was gum, and we had everybody in the school that could bring in brand new packs of gum for the St. Louis Children's Hospital for cancer because the medicine that they get leaves a nasty taste in their mouth, so they like to chew gum to get that taste out. Whenever you're a teaching leader in a class or just some kind of leader, they remember you, and when you see them, they always make your day because they remember you, and they're always saying hi to everybody. So it makes you feel good.
One directive that we have from Dr. Bell from our principal is to take care of ourselves, to take care of each other, and to take care of this place. And I think that's a true reflection of how our school utilizes character education. And our staff and students really work together to make this the best place that it can be and the safest place for kids to grow.
As a counselor, character education to me is the most important thing that we do. That's why I became a counselor. I found that I was most passionate not about a particular curricular area, but about the character development of students. Knowing that all curricular areas are important, students are more successful in each individual area when they have good character and when they're rooted in commitments that shape who they are as young people and how they learn. So as a counselor, it's exciting to be a part of this process. It's exciting to see where we're going as a district with character education.
Parkway has really started to invest in this over the last 4 or 5 years or so. And done it systematically, intentionally, and it is a smart thing to do. I've seen a few districts do this over time in the region, and they've all reaped the benefits, both in terms of the character development of students and the academic achievement of students.
So even though we did not focus on Commitment 7, I wanted to draw attention to Commitment 7 as I conclude. This evening, we've had the great opportunity to hear from student and adult leaders in Parkway and an esteemed international expert. However, I would be remiss if I did not recognize all of the professionals in Parkway who are responsible for the work that was shared this evening. It's been years of shared responsibility, and it's work that cannot be accomplished without leaders who understand and work intentionally to support students and help provide the opportunities for them to grow, because we are impacting their lives on a daily basis, and they will ultimately impact our lives on a daily basis. Lastly, Board of Education, I must thank you. I must thank you for allowing us to be intentional in this work around character education, which will help us accomplish that last C in our mission, because we are indeed helping our students be capable, curious, and confident learners. And most importantly, we're helping them learn how to do the right thing, even when no one is watching. Also, many thanks to those who worked collaboratively in putting this report together, and those who starred in our very own Parkway character education film. And I must give an amazing shout out to Derek and to Aaron, who did all the videotaping around the district to put this amazing video together. And so with that, I will conclude and take any comments or questions that you have for me or any members of the team working with Goal 3.
Chelsea, I know you've suffered through this now, and we feel for you and hope that you recover quickly. I appreciate this kind of format because we know how you feel about this and how you champion it, and it's wonderful for us as a board to be able to see many different faces and see how they see it impacting and affecting their school and as teachers and administrators and as kids. One of the tools we've talked about over the years that is underutilized is the good old tool Naviance. Could you kind of give us what you feel is the short-term vision for that being used by students and counselors and parents?
And so I will, and Aaron, if you want to join me if I forget something. So yes, excuse me, as we have been talking about this underutilized tool, I believe we are moving forward and helping it be utilized more. So this past summer, as you know, the summer before last, I went to the Naviance conference, and I sat there and I wished I could have other Parkway leaders with me because there was so much to learn and so much to gain. So I came back and talked as much as I could, and in talking with Aaron, we invited a middle school counselor and a high school counselor to join us at the conference this year. And those two counselors have taken some leadership role with their level in talking about what they learned, which would happen in August, and continuing the work and how we can best utilize the Naviance tool. In addition, because there is so much to communicate, we brought in someone from Hobson this fall to talk with our secondary principals, and we also had a parent night, which communications helped us get that information out to our Parkway community. And we did not have a huge group at Central High, but we had a group of parents and board members who were interested in learning more. Along with that, Aaron worked with the counselors last year looking at what those guarantees are for kids in our secondary schools and how to utilize Naviance to help our students reach their goals and think about what they're going to do during their Parkway career and what they're going to do beyond. And Naviance is a tool that can help with that. In addition, our counselors are to email parents after they engage their children in a lesson using Naviance. So they're to push an email out letting parents know, we were just in the lab, this is what we did, reminding parents to log on and see what their child has done in Naviance. In addition, we started last year through Aaron's work with the counselors, communicating with parents specifically about Naviance and how to log on and contact the school if they needed help with Naviance. What am I forgetting?
So we also talked with teachers about it, because counselors get some time in classrooms, but as you go up the ladder, it's harder and harder for teachers to want to give up their time, which is completely understandable. So again, with that shared leadership, shared responsibility, we also had teacher trainings when the Naviance representative was in town. We had lots of teachers come, and now they're doing a for in-district credit, so that session was part of that. And then the next session is for them to implement a piece of Naviance Family Connections with their students. And then the third piece will be for them to report back how it went, what sort of issues they ran into, so that I can also get a better sense of what new teachers might be facing as they try to go on and be with their students on the program. In addition to that, the Prep Me program, which is the ACT prep portion of Naviance, obviously a very important piece of it that is clearly useful for teachers. And so I have actually meetings with some teachers who I just kind of sent out, especially to our high schools, the ACT prep teachers, and asked, I'd really like to show you this program, can we meet? And so I've had one high school take me up on that, and I'm going to be meeting with the English Language Arts PLC to talk about and how they can use that in their classroom as part of their assignments. I had one other thing.
I'd also say, I forgot to mention, the assistant principals had sessions when the Hobson trainer was here. So the counselors had a session with her. There were multiple sessions, many sessions. Assistant principals had a session, and then there was a session for teachers. And so Aaron has since then emailed school groups based on what the principal, the assistant principal, and the staff who attended, talking about their learning and asking to come in to support their continued growth and their continued work through with Naviance.
And then also, one of the things that we talked about with them was, and I said, hey, that parent night, a few of you were there was a Cardinals game, there was a lot going on, I can't compete with the Cardinals. Shouldn't plan anything in the evenings in October, I don't think. But in talking with the assistant principals and the principals about how do we get more parents engaged, and Dr. Marty pointed out, it needs to be more than just an email. And so we talked with the schools about, let's tack this onto curriculum night. Let's have a Naviance portion of your evening dedicated, like just something they're already coming for anyway, dedicate at least one part of your building or one piece of the night to this. And so those are things that we're organizing with them for those events that are already happening to engage parents and encourage them to create their own accounts which connect to their students' accounts.
Thank you.
Aaron, I'm surprised you only got one high school to respond to your, so I would suggest just be pushy and keep pushing yourself on the others.
Okay, will
Because
do.
it's, it's really valuable information.
Absolutely, will do.
I know everybody's busy, but.
Yeah. I have to start all my emails with that. I know you're busy, but yes, thank you.
We don't have enough counselors that can work with 1,200 kids in a high school or even middle school. So the more they take responsibility and get pushed into this, they're going to see that there's a wealth of information that can help them. They may not even be thinking about things, and Naviance will ask them to do that, so they can not only be prepared, but take responsibility for what's going to be facing them sooner than they think.
Right, and the thing with that too is that counselors do introduce, especially that Prep Me to kids in their sophomore year, so they all get on and they all do it, but it's a matter of then you go home and there's not much follow-up, and counselors are not giving it as homework or giving them grades on anything. And so that's why I believe, the teachers, that it clearly connects with their curriculum, and a lot of them have goals like that. Their ACT scores will go up in whatever curricular area they teach. And so it fits. And so it's just a matter of getting them, I think, used to the system and understanding what it can do.
I do know in the middle school, at least at West Middle, a couple of weeks ago, a counselor was working with the students in the classroom on Naviance to show them how to operate it. And I do believe there was a homework assignment that was supposed to be turned in for that as well. So I was really happy to see that that was actually being done. This was in 7th grade at least, so that was done.
Great.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It was on a separate topic, when I picked up my daughter, who's at Clayman Elementary, from the school bus in the afternoon, all of the children came away with these postcards that said, "I will not bully," and about bullying and character development, and they all had to sign it and take it back to their bus driver the very next day. So it was really kind of heartwarming to see all these students, these little students carrying these postcards saying, "I will not bully," and making a commitment, and it was all going to get taped up or I think on the bus, but I'm not exactly sure from, see so much you can get from a 6-year-old on where, what, but it was really cute. It was really sweet, so, yeah.
Well, and one of the things that we've done over the past couple of years with working with Will Rosa is training our bus drivers and helping them realize that when kids get on the bus, that's the first classroom of the day.
Yeah.
And so how do they work collaboratively with the schools to understand also their character education initiative, so it's just a natural flow from one classroom to the other.
Absolutely.
And so the bus drivers have been very receptive to that development over the past couple of years.
Thank you for doing that.
Is anyone else going to get to see this? You going to post it somewhere?
Paul, can we post this somewhere? Sure.
It's so beautifully done. It would be awful just to sit there and not let other people.
Well, I will tell you, everyone, and I sat and was on the other side of some of these amazing educators, and listening to them, I don't know how we cut this, because the passion that just flowed from the people that you saw was amazing. And so we did cut Dr. Berkowitz talking about how great Dr. Marty is, but we do have that. We do have that on tape.
Well, I think you have a sequel coming.
There we go.
More popcorn.
And we were thinking about some bloopers, but nobody made any. They were all so good.
Oh.
We had no bloopers for the end.
It was great, very well done.
Chelsea, one of the real keys is obviously the school leadership, and that's where Marvin comes in, trains a lot of our principals. And I don't know if on the top of your head, we had just had some LACE graduates. It's a LACE program, it's a leadership program.
On Friday.
Yeah, do you want to just inform the board who's completed that work most recently? And
Oh, boy.
yeah, can you do it
So
or not?
graduation is on Friday. We will have Mike Bogus.
Tim McCarthy.
Tim McCarthy, Aaron McPherson, Gina Puccini. Wait, we have 7 or 8.
I'm sorry, I should have.
Oh, wait, thank you. It is an artifact. See if I can find it really quick.
This is really what Chelsea's looking for. You know, we really have found that partnership with that program to really be key, because once the principal really buys in, then that really becomes a real opportunity to develop that. And we just, with Marvin Berkowitz and Diane Klein, who's the executive director of Character Plus, we just toured McKelvey recently to try to get the understanding of that depthness of those school leadership down into the classrooms, and we had a good time there, and really.
So we'll have Dr. Bogus, Daryl Diggs, Dr. Diggs, Tim McCarthy, Aaron McPherson, Dan Moore, Gina Puccini, and Aaron Wells. So those will be our graduates on Friday. Anybody
Thank
else?
you very much. Please go home and take care of yourself.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, 15.0 work session. I'd like to call on Patty Bedborough, CFO, to come on down and give us a budget update for this year and budget assumptions for next year.
Good evening, Madam President, Mr. Vice President, members of the Board of Education, Dr. Marty, and Mrs. Stover. Just want to go over and begin with our budgeting timeline for the year. So, of course, tonight we're going to look at our budget that you just recently approved, and we're going to go over some preliminary budget assumptions for our next year budget. Next month, on our regular scheduled board meeting, we will bring the budget assumptions for you for your formal approval. We will then commence in building all the components within the budget and present to you for your review on May 6th, a preliminary budget presentation, and then we will ask for your formal adoption of that budget on June 10th. So just kind of as a review of what our operating results have been over the last 2 years, we did see a growth in our fund balance of $3.1 million. Part of that came from a gain in revenues of $4 million, and we also had a gain in expenses of $2.2 million, so a net operating surplus of $2.05 million. So our ending fund balance at the end of last year was 14.36%. With the budget that you previously approved in today's meeting, the total revenues assumptions, included a decrease from our original budget of $863,000. Part of that was due in part to our reduced collection rate for our property taxes. Last year, as you recall, the protested tax settlements really took a hit in our collection rate. We ended the year with just over a 95% collection rate. So in this year, we're looking at a possible 96% collection rate. So certainly a little bit of a gain from last year, but we are not very hopeful in improvement in that as yet. Some slight other changes in the reporting, including if you look at loss, it appears to be a loss in federal revenues of $875,000. A portion of that is actually from adult education that is partially funded through state, so it's a correction of that coding. Our preliminary total expenditure assumptions include a savings from the original budget in salaries and benefits of about $328,000, and then inclusions to our building budgets and our program budgets, a total of just over $1.6 million increase, which are included as carry forwards from the prior year, so projects that were in progress and just not completed at last year, and they're allowed to carry over their budget balances. So at the end of the year, we do hope to have $3 million in savings, but we actually anticipate that this will be more, but we wanted to give a conservative approach as far as what our total expenditures are. But with this budget that you approved, it had an increase in expenditures of $1.3 million. So when we look at that for operating revenues, the change in the revenue becomes a loss of $560,000. And in the expenditures, it actually becomes an increase of $2.4 million. So why the increase of the $1.1 million in the changes? We actually had allocated in the original budget some capital projects that would have been done out of operating funds had the bond issue not passed. So those projects now will be inclusive in the bond issue projects. So our operating fund balance, so bringing that forward, our original budget would have had a fund balance of 15.5%. This revised budget has a 14% ending fund balance, but once again, we are hopeful that we are being ultra conservative both on our revenue assumptions and our expenditure assumptions. Remember, our largest operating revenue is our local tax revenues, and we actually reduce that in here. So we are hopeful that it may turn around, but we can't guarantee it at this time. Looking at this is total revenue. So this is with debt service and with capital projects and our general fund and our teachers fund. Our largest portion of our revenues, 90%, come from our local. So a portion of that local is local tax revenue, but also included in there is tuition from the transfer students. It is Prop C from sales tax revenue, and student activities funds, et cetera. County revenues make up 1.7%. 4.6% is from our state revenue, so that is both from the formula, from parents as teachers, and from a portion of adult ed. 2.4% is from federal, and 1.2% is from other, which includes transportation reimbursement from SSD, and it includes the transfer students from both Riverview and from Normandy school districts. Just a visual breakdown of our expenditures by object. Remember, this is in total, so this varies year by year. This is not by operation. So our total salaries are 58.1% of our budget. Our benefits are 20.3% of our budget. Our purchase services, 4.3%. 8.5% for supplies. 0.7 for capital projects, so this is an anomaly in this year because we do not have a lot of capital projects in this budget yet, so that will vary once we put the bond issue projects into the budget. Student activities, 1.4%, and principal and interest, so that includes all of our debt service, of 6.6%. Moving forward, as we look at our projections, we're going to talk a little bit about our commercial assessment appeal settlements. A little bit about new construction and what our anticipated growth is. We have included in here enrollment projections, some salary benefit and utility projections. As we can see, our overall health of our economy is improving, slow but steady. Recent reports have unemployment rates and jobless rates dropping, so that's certainly a good thing. Interest rates certainly have become steady. They're not on the rise yet, unfortunately, so the revenue that we have in our budget, we actually have essentially left flat to last year because interest rates we have not seen improvement on. Inflation rates, currently we look at between 1.5% to 2% inflation rate for the year. We'll know more once we have the consumer price index number, but right now, especially with the fuel costs, deflated in price, that's a large driver in keeping the consumer price index down. And of course, once we know legislative changes, we will certainly bring them to your attention to see how that impacts our revenues, et cetera, but we won't know that until probably late spring. So first, to look at our history of our assessed valuation, the blue line is actually our assessed valuation that was used for our tax rate calculations over the past years. The red line actually is the line that represents the settled claims. So as you can see, in some years, we have quite a decrease in that assessed valuation. For this next year, I'm anticipating about a 1% growth in assessed valuation. So you may ask, why just a 1% growth when we see so much construction going on? Well, one of the main factors in that is the protested tax settlements are still going on. In fact, yesterday I was part of a meeting with other CFOs for school districts with the county assessor's office, and they said we are just hitting the tip of the iceberg. So it may get worse before it gets a little better. So that's why I'm only anticipating a 1% growth. I'm hopeful that it's better, but right now, that's the best I can. I don't want to overestimate that growth. So local tax revenue from the actual taxes, 71% of our revenue is made up of that. Of course, over the past 2 years, we have paid back more than $8 million in those tax settlements. And of course, this has highly impacted our inability to grow the fund balance at an increased rate. It's difficult to plan for that future revenue growth, so we need to be very conservative in our expenditure growth along with that. Of course, we do have the possibility of using the remaining recoupment for the residential rate. On the last calculation, it was around $6 million, so that would be about 24 cents to the tax rate for residential. This is this upcoming year is the third year of it, so it will be a use it or lose it. The other item that we have is our voluntary rollback on our residential rate, and that is at 23.82 cents. We set it this past year, so we cannot change that next year in a reassessment year. It would be that following year if we want to take some of that. Here's a history of our tax collection rate. I think this is important to show essentially how steady at times our collection rate has been. So, you know, if you look at the overall history, certainly our collection rate has varied in the most part between 97 and 98%. But certainly in the last 2 years, that has decreased quite a bit, and that is from the increase in those protested tax settlements that we'd have to give as paybacks to the county. This next year, we are looking at that 96%, so in this current fiscal year that we're in. Enrollment projections, so Nathan Tyson provides enrollment projections for us. So certainly we take this information and we also then escalate that out to our staffing projections too. So we do have slight increases in our resident students. We have slight decreases actually in our VST students that are coming in. So we do use those for our projections. Just to graphically show some of our enrollment history, last year, so 2013 was our actual lowest year in attendance in the last 10 years. Since we do project just slight growth in enrollment over the next several years. When we're looking at that core instructional staffing, when we're putting it into the budget, we take the total enrollment projection, divide it by the ratio, and then have a baseline instructional staff. So based on that enrollment projection right now, we look to have an increase in teaching staff of 3.74. Of course, this is not the final projection. We do that actually with the February enrollment. And Amy Joyce and I are actually going to team up, and we're going to look at it more from a by school enrollment too, to see if there's any fluctuations that would actually change that total number. So instead of just looking at it from an overall total, we actually are going to dig a little deeper and then go in by school too. So we'll provide you that analysis when we do that. So far in salary increases, so for last year, so in this year's budget, 2.65% across the board. Currently in the teacher agreement, we have 2.69% increase, and in the nurse agreement, we have 2.67% increase. We are currently under negotiations with facilities, and once that is settled, then we'll know those percentages, and normally the rest of the staff falls in with all those ranges in that same guideline. Fringe benefits. Overall, our health and dental premiums have risen approximately 9% as of January 1st, 2015. Our self-insured program is estimated to end the year with a $1 million deficit. We have higher claims than anticipated. So with this, for the next year, we budgeted a 5% increase, and then the additional 4% is being picked up by employee contributions. With current market conditions and anticipated cost increases, we do see the similar increase that will be needed for 2016. The good news is the state retirement system has once again frozen their retirement contributions for the next year, so we won't see a budget increase just based on the salary, on retirement. School budgets, at this time we look at the allocation both for elementary, middle, and for high school, and they seem to meet the needs of the schools. In fact, part of the budget additions that we put in place were based on their carryover of their budget. So right now we feel there's sufficient amounts, so our recommendation is to move forward with the remaining per pupil allocation. Transportation. This year, the good news is we do not need to buy new buses, so we do save a bit on our capital expenditure. Last year, we did purchase 12 new buses. We work off of a 10-year replacement cycle. Currently, our average fleet age is 4.2 years. So in the 2016-2017 budget, we will actually budget to add new buses, and at that time we will do a cost analysis to determine if there will be CNG or regular diesel fueled vehicles. The good news though, with our fuel budget, Will said that we essentially have a 5 to 10% savings currently on our fuel budget. So we have purchased 16,000 less gallons of diesel so far this year, which is excellent. And of course, we have the decrease in cost that all of us are seeing when we fill up our gas tanks too. When we look at our facilities budget, certainly we are very, very excited that we passed the 2014 bond issue. So that'll be able to take care of a lot of our large capital project needs. We're planning for 2 bond issues, essentially 2 issuances of bonds, in the first to take place in March of 2015. So in January, we'll probably have some preliminary information for you on that. And we believe that first amount will be close to $50 million. The remaining, we believe, will be planned to be sold in 2017. And once we have that sale amount and the amount that will be spent in this fiscal year, we'll include that in spring budget revisions. Technology and technology equipment. In this year's budget, we have $1.3 million for technology refresh, and next year we anticipate a $1.4 million need for that. Good news on our energy usage, both our electric and natural gas, because of our overall savings and enhancements we have put in place. We essentially have about a 2.64 savings in usage each year. Essentially, that has offset our price increases from the suppliers, so that's excellent news. And then with the installation of our new HVAC equipment that will be put into place with our bond issue funds, that'll help in the future to continually decrease those energy costs. The other item that I'd like to make note on too is last month you approved for the lighting projects, the grant on the lighting projects. That also, once it's installed, will save about $130,000 a year in electrical usage too. Year-end operating cash requirements, always a big discussion, I know. Based on policies, our operating cash requirement is 13.5% of the original operating expenditure budget. We also have a stabilization cash requirement of an additional 3.8%, so that's a 17.3% requirement in total. We are not there yet. If we were to have a desirable fund balance percentage, that we would not need to do tax anticipation note borrowing. We'd need a fund balance percentage of close to 24%. So our current fund balance is around 30 million. We would need 53 million, so a $23 million increase approximately. So just kind of briefly to graphically show our fund balance history over the past several years. Certainly we're making some gains in our endeavor to get past that 17.3%. We're not there yet. We're still kind of stuck because our major revenue source is our tax rate. And right now, that assessed valuation is still a little flat, and especially that main driver in that is the payback of those protested taxes. Had we had the $8 million, instead of having to pay that back to the protested tax settlements, we'd be in a much better condition. So what are some ideas in order to improve that fund balance percentage? Certainly in this next year, we could budget to use and take advantage of the residential recoupment rate. So that was around 6.4 million. In the year following, we could use all or a portion of the voluntary rollback. Once again, that's on the residential rate. We want to look at a review of our facility and our staffing utilization. So I mentioned briefly that Amy Joyce and I would be looking at staffing utilization, but we also want to look at facility utilization. Over the past week, Dr. Marty and I met with a potential new subdivision with owners of McBride & Son in the River Bend area. So that would bring some potential new growth and new enrollment to the district too. So we want to be able to make sure that we have facilities that would be able to handle the anticipated growth in the student population too. And certainly as the year progresses, we'll have a better idea of the continued impact of the protested tax settlements too. And we'll always keep you abreast to those. So at this point in time, I'll entertain any questions that you may have.
I have a question, Patty. On your pie chart, you showed that salary and benefits combined for 78.4%. So we're below our 80% target, Dr. Marty, that you've been...
Well, in the 80%, and him and I talked about that briefly, the 80% is actually on operating expenses. So this is on total expenses. So this has debt service and everything included too, and capital projects. So that's always going to skew a little bit. So what I could do is when I present the assumptions for next board meeting, I will also have a pie chart in there with the operating expenses in there.
Okay, thank you. Yeah,
think it's-
I got all excited.
More like 83, more like 83%.
It's going to be, it's going to be in the 80s, yeah. Yeah.
Anybody else? So do you have any idea, with the fuel rates doing what they're doing now, I understand they're supposed to go below well, I don't know what diesel, what that equates to.
It has dropped a bit. It hasn't dropped as low. And the diesel market tends to follow the gasoline market. So it's supposed to have a continued drop too, but maybe not as much by the end of the year, but possibly by the next fiscal year.
Mm-hmm. Okay. We will hold on and wait for that then.
And we also know that that can change in the wink of an eye too.
Yes.
If there's
Yes.
any type of disruption over in the Mideast, of
Right.
course, that
Right. Well, we'll just
changes
enjoy it now
drastically.
while we can.
Absolutely.
It's just very exciting to watch that, though. Let's hope that continues for us.
And if we use the recruitment that's available to us, that would have that means that the residential cost would go up then, right?
Correct. Correct. Both the recoupment and the voluntary rollback are both on that residential rate, unfortunately.
Patty, one of the things that I had noticed is in our other, when we look at total revenue by source, only 1.2% is from other. And I realize that we're going to have to not rely as much on taxes, because it just doesn't sound like we're going to be able to rely on that as our major funding source. Are there any other opportunities that we can start looking at to find revenue to compensate for what we're not getting in taxes? And I know this is.
I don't understand your question. I
Yeah,
guess,
so-
Because most of our budget is from taxes.
Right.
90%.
So as a nonprofit, certainly we, and state, essentially guided, we are very limited on how we as a school district can go out and collect funds. So
Okay.
one of our main sources is via the tax rate.
Okay.
The other part is through the state formula, but our formula, so as we add more students, per student, we only get about $500 per child. So one thing that, of course, is included in the legislative initiatives is to increase the state formula. So that would mean removal of the proration factor. That'll give us marginal money. The other item that's included in there is the restoration of the transportation funding. Currently, we get about 25% of the actual formula for transportation. When they were cutting the budget in 06, 07, 08, 09, they, meaning the state of Missouri, were cutting that transportation budget pretty heavily, but only making the headlines with what they cut in the formula. So realistically, we could be making 1.4 million maybe by the end of the year, but truly if that was fully funded, it would be closer to a $3 million to a $3.5 million. So even there, it's marginal impact on our total budget. Our real impact comes from our tax dollars.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and if our expenses go up, then really we're like other school districts. You end up having a tax rate that, some of them are up $8, and we're sitting here at
Correct.
4.5.
So as the property is assessed lower and lower, then you're able to roll up that tax rate to your tax rate ceiling. So currently, we're not at our ceiling. So we do have opportunity there to roll that up. Remember, too, that Parkway as a whole in St. Louis County is one of the lowest tax rates. When you look at some of the North County districts or the districts around the city of St. Louis, their tax rates are much, much higher than ours are.
To Debbie's point, later on in the year, your turn will come around to talk about Goal 6.
Absolutely.
And, in terms of efficiency, effectiveness, and I think the things we're doing around, we've talked to you about sports marketing and a new approach there. You're right to ask that question. What are some other ways that we can continually look at, enhancing our ability to deliver education in whether it's co-curriculars or certainly with the C&G busing, and other things we've tried to do. So that's an ongoing effort around Goal 6. It's very worthy of that, which I guess brings the point that there are a lot of school districts around the country that are, and this is a point of contention when I go to conferences, there's a pushback on it, but some districts really start down the road, and it's kind of a slippery road of going down the fee road. You start feeing everything from parking to textbooks to technology. It's like when my children were in college, if you looked at that college, you probably noticed this, Beth. You see, student services. Every line has some kind of. They're just computer.
Lab fee.
Yeah. And I hope we don't have to do that, because I think you can generate some revenue, but it angers people if they really,
Well, not only does it anger people, but we've got a slow economy. And,
Yes, yeah.
You start charging for textbook rental and somebody can't afford it. Does that mean their child doesn't get one?
Yeah, it's really.
I think one of the things we may have to look at in the future to help us on the capital side would be naming rights. That can be,
Maybe what, I'm sorry?
naming rights. For everything from the swimming pool to the cafeteria, somebody.
Somebody would want to put their name on the cafeteria?
They might.
Chris Jacob bus. Rouse number 492.
But things like that can help us a lot on the capital side. And of course, there's always the untenable thing of having to touch operations and increasing class size and things like that, that we'd have a pretty good discussion with our community before we did anything like that. But that's a reality that if we hadn't had the tax increase in 2006, because that's when everything was fine.
Well, one of the other efforts I think that Dr. Marty has commissioned somebody to do is to look at more grant opportunities to help, more grants.
Oh, yeah,
through
yes, more,
The
yes,
software
yes. We're trying to,
program
yeah,
that we
look for
have
external.
to start looking at more grants that might be able to funnel in some money to help support programs that we could get that way as well.
Absolutely, but one of our big goals is to look and make sure that our expenditure growth does not outpace our revenue
Yeah,
growth.
yeah.
So to keep our eyes set on that is very, very important. So we need to make sure that we are being as efficient and effective with the spending of our dollars, both in our staffing and in all of our expenditures, in order to keep our expenditures as low as they can. Because right now, our revenue source, like I said, is not growing at the pace that it had grown in the past.
I'm happy to report that housing project over there by Target on Clayton Road, that's 69 homes, and the lowest one was 475, and the highest was close to 800, so it's about a $40 million project, which would theoretically bring in about 400,000 to us.
It depends on the assessed valuation, on how the assessor actually
That's right.
assesses that in,
Yeah.
but certainly that helps. Now with that, of course, we have some children that'll be enrolled with that, so we'll have some matching expenditures, if you will, with
Yeah.
that revenue source too. So,
Henry-
we always are
Henry's
kind of
growing.
mindful of that. Because we may have to look at that school enrollment too, of Henry, because we are currently under a utilization study, because we do believe we need possibly 2 classroom spaces there. So looking at some alternative choices of placement there.
Well, I've really appreciated Patty's look at the budget. We've always had, with the last several years, Mark was certainly a strong advocate of looking at all aspects, but Patty's new eyes have also been refreshing and looking at this from a different approach. And so I think she's done a thorough job here of really looking at this budget as we prepare for the next budget, where we're at as we lead into. So this was a little bit more thorough than maybe you're used to as a board, but I think it was really valuable. It was valuable for us as administrators to hear this report a couple weeks ago.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Let's see, the next scheduled, we have no call for special meeting. Next call for scheduled closed session is January 14th, 2015 at 6 p.m. at Central Middle School. Details of the closed session will be posted within 24 hours of the anticipated meeting. 18.0 recess, 19.0 closed session. We are finished with that. May I have a motion and a second to adjourn the regular meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Thank you very much.